Thank you so much, the panelists over there who have taken time out to join us today. Thank you, all the audience, for joining. I'm your host, Saurabh Singh. I lead retail CPG industry vertical for Polestar, and we are excited to have an incredible panel of leaders with us today. Let me quickly introduce them to you before getting into the conversation. First up is Gurkan. He leads global RGM at McCain Foods. Gurkan has over 2 decades of experience in CPG, and he has been at the forefront of driving RGM transformation across global markets. He is known for building practical playbooks and governance models that make RGM not just a strategy, but a way of working. Welcome, Gurkan. Next up, we have Juan. He's head of revenue management and commercial planning at Holcim. Juan brings a rich experience across CPG, FMCG, pharma, and building materials industries. He's a true commercial strategist who's passionate about embedding RGM into daily business operations and building sustainable cross-functional growth. Welcome, Juan. And finally, we have Mike Healy. He's the VP and global head of RGM at BAT, which is British American Tobacco. Mike is driving the enterprise-wide RGM function, partnering with leadership teams around the world to shape strategic pricing, performance, and large-scale transformation. He has built infrastructures to upskill practitioners and is a strong advocate of analytics-led commercial excellence. Welcome, all three of you. Looking forward to this conversation. I'm sure the audience is very, very excited as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sonali, I saw you streaming. Should we start? Can we start now?
Yes, sorry, we can start.
Sure. The first question is to you, Gurkan. How has your approach to revenue growth management evolved over your career? And I can see that you have 20 plus years of experience. And what have been the most important factors in embedding RGM capabilities into business planning?
That's really a great question. And, if I could start with a little bit of context up front, right? I mean, as far as kind of like how both RGM, the consumer and the customer landscape's evolving. As we all know, and as we're all experiencing, the industry is right now looking for the right RGM cues to develop, to deliver the growth algorithm. After many years of hyperinflation, where we had seen so much top line growth through just price mix improvements. Now we're looking to deliver more balanced top line with the right amount of volume and the right amount of price mix. So basically, organizations were focusing on just pricing and protecting the economics of the business, but now we're shifting gears to drive penetration, to be able to still, make sure that we're not deleveraging the business on the volume side, but also optimizing the price pack architecture to create value for the consumers and the customers. So throughout my career, right, I mean, there have been many important career lessons, but, the way I've always tried to structure it is asking around the questions around continuous improvement, like, my decisions or actions, are they just impacting the quarter, or are there unintended consequences that could be long lasting? What can I learn from my team today about our competitors, about, the industry, about the category, the market that I didn't know, and how can I reflect on those? How can I create a vision and inspire my team and those around me to believe in, where we're headed? But also, like, how can we create, zones of experimentation within my team, within the company, so that, we could learn or fail and, fail fast and still move forward. So how do I combine, or how can we combine all of those into the operating rhythm or the planning cycle is, let's make sure that we're using the seat at the table to shape decisions instead of just validating that. And that's really an important factor. Embedding, RGM checkpoints into the planning calendar, building learnings and outputs on existing commercial routines so that, we speak the language of the frontline, we speak the language of corporate strategy, and it's not just completely two different, books. And then success inevitably always depends on how we bring the different cross-functionals together and helping them understand the RGM principles and how we train them. So when we combine all of those things, I believe that, we've been able to move the ball forward on the RGM front.
No, I think that is a great reflection, Gurkan. I think continuous improvement, fail fast, learn fast. I think going forward, this is what the key would be to, how you evolve a function. You also mentioned one thing, wherein RGM is now evolving from being a specialist function to something which is embedded into your day-to-day discussions, right? I liked the point about integrating it early into your business planning rather than treating it as a simultaneous or parallel track, right? It is clear that when RGM becomes kind of a cog in the wheel or part of the rhythm of planning, the impact would compound over time, and the execution has to be done by the sales folks or people on ground, and therefore the cross-functional thing that you mentioned becomes very, very relevant.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Juan, moving on to you, I think in industries you have very diverse experience, and all these industries would have distinct demand patterns, right? So how do you tailor your RGM strategies to build sustainable growth and ensure alignment across functions?
Thanks. So just the basics, you may say that are the same. The RGM frameworks can be widely common if you look at them on the specificities. But the keys are the demand drivers. You need to really understand deeply the shopper journey, the influencers, the industry that you're operating in. So when you really focus on those, you really need to start by the beginning, by understanding who's your shopper, your consumer, your user, and then transitioning to what moves them to buy your product or to get into your category. And that's why I think partnering with consumer and business insights is key. You need to really work side by side with them. And if you don't have it, I lived that in the past. You have to build it by your own. And it's really necessary to go out there and look and talk to your user, your consumers, your shopper, your customers, and see what's the demand. Look how the demand is structured, how we create demand. There are industries where you don't create demand, the demand is already set, but you can switch or change the decision at the point of sale. So you really need to look closer to that shopper journey. And I still believe as long as we have people as customers, we have to balance the science and art of the RGM equation, because at the end there is a lot of information available right now, but the human factor is still key. So I always ask my teams to be on the field with the sales reps and visiting customers and talking to consumers to really get the motivations and the drivers behind. At the end, the human factors is always changing, it's evolving. We have different preferences during the day or during the week, or depending on how we feel. So it's really necessary to be close and in the field with the sales reps and the shoppers, the consumers.
No, I agree. I think if I tie it up back to how Gurkan was explaining how it should be part of your business planning, and from there itself you'd understand the demand patterns, be it any industry, right, for that matter, and then bringing in the understanding and nuance of that specific industry, bringing in the people perspective, both from the consumer perspective, which you mentioned, they're understanding the customer journey, and also the sales folks, the marketing folks, the finance folks, all of them coming together. And this is where I think the RGM strategies either click or collapse. It depends on that coordination a lot. And with this input, and I'll go to Mike. Mike, what unique challenges do you encounter in driving your RGM across diverse markets and channels? I think British American Tobacco is a huge corporation which is interested in mature markets, which has interest in not so mature markets. How do you foster commercial excellence to address them?
Yeah, it's a great question, Saurabh. And one that I think first you have to recognize that, and one area that I won't address directly, I think is regulatory framework. right? I mean, I think, look, especially in a industry like the nicotine industry, you're going to have such nuanced regulation frameworks that are ever present in almost every single market that you go to. And so, I'll say that I won't address that because inevitably that's where we depend very heavily on the market practitioners' understanding of the regulatory environment to help us understand how we nuance our revenue management strategies, the types of things that would be even reasonable for us to bring forward. Many markets around the world that you can't actually promote nicotine products. And so, we sort of leverage our expertise in the market to help guide us on the areas of opportunity. Now, sort of turning the page on that, I'll go back to one of the things that Gurkan said, right, is this idea of continuous improvement. Right. We don't necessarily count anybody out of the equation of having a best in class revenue management type of function. Right. And so the way that we actually think about this is more on maturation journey. Right. We sort of give everybody a perspective on, look, this is what foundational capabilities look like. This is what the next level looks like. This is what the next level looks like. And so we run an annual, like many companies do, we run an annual survey across every single market that's sort of within our purview. Those that tend to be larger markets with more mature data environments, these types of things. So we run an annual survey. And at the conclusion of that, we summarize the results and we take a look, where is everybody standing? What are the opportunities for us to continue to develop revenue management capabilities? And with that, we have kind of a 3-tiered system almost of guiding every single market as an outcome of that assessment around, and it really goes into one, which is very much enabled by, playbooks, training material, these types of things. We develop the training material that very much go alongside the playbook material. So it's a practical training that we actually launch as an outcome and say, look, let us take you through what good looks like in pricing, in driving efficiency through consumer discounting and the like. And then we build our MVP, minimum viable product solutions around the playbooks and the training material. So it's a sort of a 360, 3-tiered system where, understanding what sort of level of maturation a market is, then we take them through sort of the understanding about how to continue to grow and develop, what opportunities would make sense for a given market based on data maturation, based on process enablement, based on how plugged in revenue management is into things like annual planning, things like tactical planning when it comes to investment decisions within the year. And so we try to, as much as we can, not overshadow the fact that every market can be a little bit different, right? Yeah. And so we try to build the infrastructure to get 50 to 70% of it right. And then that last 50 to 30% is very much enabled by how closely connected we are, how much we're able to drive the agenda with the local market stakeholders, with our commercial stakeholders that are running the business locally. And we continue this as an ever evolving conversation about how do we continue to push the envelope and mature the market practice.
No, I think totally understand that. So you rightly mentioned 2 parts to it. One is the foundational capabilities that needs to be consistent across your global presence. That's where you can keep the balance between your what's good versus what needs to get improved and go across the maturity stages. Second is you talked about regulatory. I think you work in an environment which is very, very regulated, and more so that you would look at it from different areas, different geographies, and they would have different regulations, right? So therefore the commercial ability or execution on ground would be different for different industries, for different markets, sorry. So yeah, that completely makes sense. Moving on from here, the next up, we'll put in 2 speakers together for a single question. And Gurkan and Juan, you are tag team over here, wherein what I need to know, Gurkan, from you is that you talk about upskilling leadership for the new RGM era. And how do you think, AI-powered technologies will impact skills development and management? And then Juan, you can also you can take that up further and answer, how should HR rethink talent management to keep pace with AI-driven transformation in RGM?
Certainly very combined, and I love the fact that we are addressing this issue. So I'm really looking forward to Juan's answer. But I mean, what I will start is AI-powered technologies and its impact on RGM is already underway, and it's only going to accelerate from here. I mean, we all know that, right? I mean, AI continues to transform, and it doesn't just transform what we do, but it's also how we work and what skills that we will need to be able to succeed. I think historically, we would all agree that RGM required a lot of, manual data and adjustments and, working through all of that. So there's an efficiency factor that we can certainly gain. But what's really exciting for me in the way our teams are approaching it is RGM teams will need to understand, how the AI models work, but also what their limitations are. Because, Juan talked about the ability to combine the art and the science and having that human factor still being the key. I completely agree with that, right? I mean, so building the right technological foundation as an enabler is very critical, but we still have to do that within the current operating routines and the operating rhythm of our companies. Because our sales teams and the frontline don't want a black box answer. They want RGM demystified, and then we can use the power of AI to be able to do a lot of those things. Now, again, the area that's really exciting is our IQ is going to get better with AI, but where we can augment that is better EQ and better social quotient, or SQ, to be able to continue to evangelize with all those learnings that we're getting from AI and how we're incorporating it into how the brand plans are being built, how the business plans are being built, how we're able to bring many of the different teams together to be able to institutionalize the knowledge, but also help the company move forward. So IQ goes up because of AI. We get the efficiency, but now we're able to then train our teams to really go for the softer side too and understand the human impact of pricing, or how we can combine all of the different levers to be able to make a business difference.
Yeah.
Sure. If I can pick it up from there, I think we all face the hiring and developing challenges of our RGM team. It's really difficult to get good people for this function. One colleague used to say that we should look for unicorns, people that have a strong numerical backgrounds, but can understand the business, but can also get the power of the brands in creating value. So it's not that easy to find people that can combine the three of them. So I always said that we live in a triangle of excellence where we aligned marketing, sales, and finance. We need to be the voice of the customer to the others. We need to be the voice of the consumer. We need to be the voice of the company to keep the ROI in check. So it's really difficult to find people that can fulfill this role. So I would say that we are in a transition period. Some years ago, we need too much information, or we need to do a lot of analysis or data processing to get one scenario or one option to have an informed decision. Today, the answers to most questions are widely available. We have AI to help us to get to and to process the information very easily. So we should partner with HR to promote or to develop some core competencies within the teams, like critical thinking, like curiosity, like influencing. So the technology is there. We can leverage already, but we still need to make sense of all the information we have available and the nuances in each market, each consumer, each category are still very relevant. The technology is not there yet. So we must continue to develop those skills, and HR should be a key partner on that effort.
Oh, I think both of you have such great insights on this topic, right? I think it's clear that AI isn't the changing the tools we use. We are just doing them better, utilizing them better, but it's changing the kind of leaders and teams we need. You both touched upon, building adaptability or curiosity into the new tools or new culture and not just the technical skills, right? What I feel is that the real competitive edge will come when people would understand how they and AI can learn to work together and to their advantage. And one thing that Juan, you mentioned, the triangle of expertise, I mean, that is critical because I think the traditional HR frameworks, they don't account for this. They need to, be up with the times, be ahead of the times actually. Job descriptions, career paths, competency models, they are all built on, stable skill sets. Now, these foundational skills, and we coming from the services industry, we can tell you that, these foundational skills, they are becoming obsolete almost every 2 years and going forward every 6 months maybe. The whole talent management infrastructure that needs a very clear rethinking, and it has to be very very disruptive in nature. With that, next question would come to Juan and Michael. Juan and Mike, how can organizations use AI and analytics to design RGM COEs that balance market differentiation with scale? Something Mike you touched upon earlier. And how does your approach differ between mature markets like the US and Europe versus emerging ones in Southeast Asia, where market dynamics are more fluid? I think this question is rightly where you left off, Mike.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. In that, look, it's I would say very much dependent on availability of information, how sophisticated your data systems and structures are, how sophisticated your routines are, your processes, how sort of evolved your personnel are on the ground as well. So the way that we like to think about it, and very much borrowing practice from my PepsiCo days, we have this concept of market makers, right? So the idea being that we sort of almost isolate a core group of markets that intend to be those seeding markets, right? Those that we think are kind of best positioned from a data standpoint, from a personnel maturity standpoint, from a retail sophistication standpoint, to be at the forefront of developmental journey, right? And these are the markets that we also identify to be the ones that everybody looks to almost emulate around them, right? These are the ones that should be those sort of shining stars, the North Stars that everybody looks to almost understand what their next phase should be. And so we've sort of instituted this idea of market makers to be the ones that ultimately, as we start to break ground on pilot programs, as we start to look at how do we use AI and machine learning techniques, not just from a data science standpoint, but also very much from a data management arrangement as well, right? And this is something that has been very much a big part of my message to the business at large is we've got to turn the corner on the utilization of data as an asset, not just something that is there to help inform our understanding of our performance, but rather how do we use it to get sharper on decision making? How do we use it as a competitive advantage? And if you don't address that first, you're always going to be at a disadvantage later on when you want to have all of these very bright and shiny things, incorporating AI and machine learning into the business. You have to address the sustainability of the data first. So let's get past that, certainly for our core market makers, right? And then let's start to extract value out of these markets and showcase it broadly to the rest of the business so that everybody looks to them and says, yeah, how do I get more of that? And so that's how we like to think about it, as kind of almost isolating a core group or a core function of the business to then get everybody to kind of build upon.
Yeah.
I really like the concept of the market makers, because at the end they will help you to fund as well the investments that you have to do on AI or whatever you necessary to develop the frameworks, and they will be better positioned to invest on those rather than just spread out on too many markets. One thing that worked for us in the past was trying to understand the company. One of the companies in pharma, for example, we had like these developed markers in the like key markets or to win markets where we know that we had the right to win, and those on like in development. So basically we try to have like a standardized framework that could work for everyone, but having like a menu where we visit the countries, we will try to tailor the solutions, the levers for them. We will have a different roadmap for everyone, because at the end you have to get the differences and the maturity level of each of the markets, but you can have a general playbook to inspire and to be the North Star of each of the countries. And then the customization now with AI, it's wonderful, because you can really drive and have a speedy implementation using AI, and the algorithms can be built and can be developed to have such a powerful adaptability to local parents, and based on those do the heavy lifting on data processing and let's say facilitate the communication with those countries. So from a global standpoint, you can also build a more landed or customized conversation using AI. I have seen that already in the industries that I used to work in pharma, in FMCG. That's always a possibility to create a standard framework, but landed on specificities using AI.
No, I think very valid points, both of you. I think Mike touched the Achilles heel in terms of the data management and the data quality aspect of it. I think and that would differ from market to market. Even in mature markets, you can see that there are issues on the data quality side, and without eliminating that, the AI models will give you not so optimal results. And same thing, I think Juan, you talked about it very, very succinctly. AI models are now easy to develop, but you need to customize them, you need to tweak them to bring in the nuances of each and every market so that they give you better results and you can act upon those insights. I think those both things would be key takeaway for me on this side. Having worked and working in this industry for quite some time, I think data is one thing that it's kind of a paradox. We've each and every company that we've gone to, that is the first thing that we have to tackle, and before moving on to the shiny objects, as Mike mentioned. All right, next question, Gurkan and Mike, for you. Managing sales and marketing budgets while adopting the AI-enabled RGM requires change management for sure. How do you ensure aligned execution and measurable ROI through these advanced technologies?
You're absolutely right. It certainly does require a lot of communication and change management. And the way I look at it is, I mean, this isn't just about, technology deployment, right? It's about the organizational transformation journey and how we create an operating rhythm. And what I mean by that is, we have to understand the essence of the brand, because we cannot just come up with a, different price promo strategy or a price pack architecture if we don't understand the brand or what it is trying to do. Are we trying to get penetration? Are we trying to get buy rate? How the brands grow, that's very important. So the ability to talk to the marketing teams, but then, converting that and communicating that to the sales teams in a way that not just delivers value for the consumer. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, right? I mean, the ability to deliver the triple win of making sure that there's something in it for the consumer, the customer, and also, in my case, for McCain. And we all know that the different departments they have different KPIs, they have different timelines, so on and so forth. What's really critical, we believe, is for RGM, especially in this new era, to continue to succeed, we have to have common definitions. We have to have a common way of measuring what an ROI looks like, or we have to have a common way of understanding, okay, what it is that we're trying to go after. Like I said, is it penetration? Is it buy rate? So once we define the core set of success metrics and the KPIs and the common measurement, then we can continue to train folks on the use cases. How do you interpret RGM through the lens of AI? Again, we talked a little bit about earlier on the skills that's needed to do that on the EQ side, along with the SQ as well. How do we create and build feedback loops from the different parts of the organization to be able to say, how do we continue to make forward progress and momentum in this continuous journey? And of course, there's always the element of securing, sponsorship and alignment with the leadership, and through more like a cross-functional RGM consult. But the ability to bring all of those together really is then, how do we measure the common success? How do we make that transparent? How do we understand when an intervention is needed? And in the consults, the ability to talk about those interventions, but all of it still goes through, the change management piece and the ability to overly communicate.
I agree.
Yeah, and on that, this one is one that's quite tricky, right? And I think it's recognizably it's a healthy tension that probably every RGM leader goes through, and early on into my tenure in this role, so I'm 3 years as the global head of RGM here at BAT, and it was one of my first assignments was, hey, tell us what RGM is delivering. And so, we came with almost, we came with two different approaches, right? One, which was very, very granular, hey, every single point of activation from an RGM team, tell us what the ROI was on it, right? We'll give you a way to calculate the outcome or whatever, right? And so as we've shared both of these approaches, one very broad-based, right? It's okay, what was the improvement versus your run rate, down to the most granular that was, hey, every individual discrete assignment, tell me what the outcome was. We continued to get resistance. Hey, but what about the trade's contribution? What about the brand team's contribution? What about this activation that came from our consumer experience team? Yeah. All of these things. And so, look, I came back to at the time, the global finance leadership team and said, guys, like, look, do we need to really continue to validate or rationalize the outcomes if we continue to try to recognize that there are other elements that influence the business, right? Do we agree that these things have merit, that we're changing and transforming the way that we sort of operate? We're changing our mentality. We're starting to implement objective decision-making into the forefront of the things that we do. If you agree with these things, that these are the things that we want to do, then let's recognize that it takes a little bit of time for this thing to continue to permeate. And so now, my approach, I'm not a big grandstander, right? I'm very much a practical thinker. I'm very much one who I would rather be sort of in the background, yielding the results than at the forefront telling everybody how great the work was, right? I would rather that be almost organic in the way that the team sort of gains and builds traction, right? From local general managers, from local heads of finance and marketing and sales and these types of people who are able to actually demonstrate the outcomes. I want them to be the ones to almost convey the outcomes of these different types of methodologies or ways of thinking or ways of transforming their business. And so, it's always a tricky one, right? Again, I think there's a laundry list of ways that you can approach the valuation of the actions that we take. But at the end of the day, that's just my perspective. What I need it to be is my business stakeholders' perspective. I want them to have the recognition of the contribution of the actions of this team to the core of their business, such that they're not just giving a knee jerk and saying, well, that wasn't you, that was this. Right? Because in that type of struggle, it's not a healthy discussion. I would rather, the general manager for my business in Japan go to the COO and tell them, I can't tell you the amount of contribution that the RGM team has had in my market. That is such a resounding, I would say, accolade versus let me tell you what our contribution was.
And Michael, I mean, if I could piggyback off of that, you're completely right in the sense that, take innovation as an example, right? I mean, it is so easy for different teams to take credit, and it's always so critical to ensure that, you're always there's only one company. I mean, there are multiple departments, but there's only one company. And how do we enable RGM and RGM mindset within the corporate strategy and what we're trying to accomplish? The critical part is also, it's not that who takes the credit, but do we have the ability to go in and say, hey, we could price this differently depending on what the local market needs. So your affordability activation and your price pack architecture might look different within your innovation cycle. Or if you're seeing everyone's making an investment, whether that's trade, retail, media, shopper marketing, consumer, so on and so forth, where everybody's putting in and the volume is not going up, how do we enable the organization to step back and say, hey, what's my full cost to serve, and am I doing right by the business? Am I doing right by the consumer and the customer? And it's not, again, so much as to who's taking the credit, but do we have the ability to be able to talk about those, but then also to truly quantify? Because sometimes, to your point, the quantification is more than just the numbers. It is also the fact that, we're stopping the organization from maybe going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, it's that element of change management, right? Like, look, I might have taken an action over here, but maybe it's not sustained. It's not sustained until there's a recognition in the business locally and directly that this is a transformational agenda item that has moved the needle.
No, definitely. I think that's such a key takeaway, which is change management through, I think, shared accountability. AI can drive ROI when the cross functions or all the functions are truly behind it, right? And that's where most of the transformations would succeed or stall. The other thing that you guys mentioned, scenario which you both described was more like, AI recommendation versus the experience judgment, right? The people on the ground would definitely have their viewpoint because they have been working on ground for such a long period of time. They have that experience, they have that gut feel. But, that's the moment of truth for any AI-enabled transformation. If you are always deferring to a human judgment, then people learn that AI is optional. And if you're doing the other way around, then you are at the risk of losing your best of the people. And that's where, Mike, that you mentioned change management. I think that's the key over there. We need to take it slowly, evolutionary, judgment over there, gradual approach, but moving with, firm steps. All right. Moving to another section wherein, all three of you can jump in and answer this. Same question for all three of you. Reflecting on your journeys, and all three of you have very different paths so far. What organizational or cultural shift in your companies had the biggest positive impact on RGM adoption? Anyone can start first. Yeah, Michael.
So I'll jump in with this one because I would say we had a really and speaking to the experience at BAT, very simple change that, quite frankly, made a tremendous amount of difference. So we at BAT, relatively, I would say, nascent, burgeoning in our RGM journey, right? Having come from maybe InBev and PepsiCo, having done revenue management, at these companies for decades, we really just started, on our own revenue management journey in around 2019, 2020. And when the team originally got stood up, it got stood up as a center of excellence with an intention to fully centralize all revenue management responsibility, accountability within a global function out of a three sort of strategic locations across the globe. And the intention was, and the way that this was almost reflected on by our market stakeholders, was that this was a very much a reductive function, right? That okay, you're going to rely on these analysts or these people out of this location who I don't know, to start making commercial strategy decisions for my business. They don't live here. They don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, they might be good at reading data, but how can you tell me that these are the people that we should be listening to? And so when I came into the role 3 years ago, already sort of 3 years of this journey under our belt, it took a little bit of time for me to kind of really fully evaluate the success measures of this team, to recognize that, look, there have been some things that have been done. In a lot of cases, analytics for the sake of analytics, capabilities that might have been built, in concert with the local market business. But in a lot of cases, not sustained solutions, things that are being built for a one and done type of undertaking and then never looked at again. And so we had completely changed the strategy behind this team, right? To actually almost uncouple both the management board as well as all of our in-market stakeholders away from the center of excellence model to almost a hybrid approach, to give the business a recognition that, it's almost, and I hate to put it out there this way, but because maybe there are some companies that successfully deploy this way, but I'm a firm believer that proximity to the market is key to the success measure of a revenue management function. And so now we're working in this hybrid approach to almost give an indication to the market teams that, look, over time, we are here to, from the center of excellence side, build foundations for you, help you understand what it takes to actually do this thing called revenue growth management, up to a point where we can hand this over to you. So it's just a simple, almost message and narrative change from, we're going to take all of this responsibility away from you, to, let us help co-create this for you. And then at some point in time, there will be a handshake agreement that you're going to now take this all on yourself. We'll continue to do that, maturation assessment. We'll continue to track your journey. We'll continue to sort of challenge you on what the next horizon looks like. But literally this simple narrative change from, being reductive to now being, an agent of empowerment has completely changed the narrative behind our revenue management adoption at this company, where I have to imagine that our management board was almost second guessing, should we have even stood this team up, right? From the limited successes of those first 3 years to now with this simple sort of message change. Now, I think they probably would question if they could work without us.
Yeah.
But this is where I think the cultural shift is very critical, not only in the company, but also in how the RGM teams operate too. And I think, I'll take a little bit of a different lens on this, in the sense that, the resilience, that's very important, as far as sometimes, it will feel like, you're pushing water up the hill, but it's about how do we actively listen to truly understand what problem we're trying to solve for the local market or for the HQ teams, and how do we enable them to get to success. And this, I believe, commercial empathy is really, really critical in not only how we deliver solutions, but also how the organization adopts solutions too, because understanding frontline realities, the pressure that the sales teams are facing with their retailers and how we can give them pragmatic solutions that's what I would call ITL in their language. So that way they understand it fits within the operating rhythm. They don't have to make changes. We're still unbiased, we're still data driven, but we're given our solutions based on how they want to see it and interact it. So those are a couple of the ways I think we can continue to make the the changes and the transformation. But let there be no doubt, I mean, it will require change management and resilience on our part.
I guess to wrap it up, on my side, I guess the key piece on changing and driving RGM adoption is how you position yourself with the sales team, rather than feeling the pricing police or the discounts gatekeeper. How do you position yourself on the value creation team? Like how these guys can help me create value and position and sell my value proposition to my customer in the right way. How can I position my pricing strategy as a tool, not as a constraint to be dealt with? I guess that's a thinking where you can install or not in the sales team is the challenge, and I have faced different stakeholders in the sales management teams, but when you really show them by really like small examples within one market, one channel, that you can create value with them and change and start influencing the value creation equation for your company, and moving the tip to how can we really profitable sell and not just achieve volume targets. That's where you really position and make RGM like part of the backbone of the commercial apparatus in a company.
No, I agree with all three of you, and those are great insights. And we also want to pick up some questions from the audience. But before that, I want to ask you some fun questions, and these are rapid fire questions. You can answer in a word and then explain it if you want to. So first question is, and this is to all three of you. If your RGM approach was a sports position in the firm, right, what would that be in your opinion?
Will be the coach. I'm always sitting and trying to look all the plays and the reactions from everyone and try to advise back to the sales and marketing team. So I will be the coach.
Okay.
I did the attacking midfielder in soccer, the number 10 player, because the position connects the lines between defense and the forwards, creates chances for the team. It requires versatility, technical understanding of the game, and a creative vision.
Yeah, I think
it's number 7. So sorry, Mike, I had to just call that out.
No, good. Oh, good. I would go one step beyond Juan's response and say the offensive coordinator, right? It's look, you're not the one actually out there throwing the passes or the one catching the passes and making the touchdown, but you're the one sort of almost guiding on, I see some holes in the defense. This is where I think we should focus our efforts and in the next play. So yeah, I think offensive coordinator.
Sure. I'll take 2 more questions, very good ones. One is coffee or tea during study sessions?
I'm from Colombia, so coffee for everything you do. It's mandatory.
Similarly, I'm originally from Turkey. Coffee, hands down.
Yeah, coffee for sure, or an energy drink possibly, depending on how late it is.
Been to Turkey myself, Gurkan. I love the chai over there.
No doubt about it. Chai is wonderful too. But I think 30 plus years in the US, along with that foundation, has turned me to coffee, I think.
One final one. What's the top RGM trait to hire for?
I think curiosity. We talked a little bit about this actually in a previous session, but curiosity, right? Somebody who generally kind of is uncomfortable with not knowing, right? And has the sort of appetite to go and, cover their own gaps in their understanding of something.
Exactly.
And-
Yeah. Drive to fill the gaps and in the picture and have it a clear explanation and be able to elaborate from the conversation with the sales rep, with the marketing team, with the customers, and have and to do that, you need to have curiosity, generally curious about what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, well said. I'll just add lifelong learning and analytical thinking, right? I mean, I think all those three combined together certainly serve us well.
Sure. We'll take up a few questions from the audience now. One question that I can see on my screen is, as AI enhances your analytical IQ, how do we intentionally develop the EQ and SQ needed to interpret and communicate RGM insights effectively across teams? I think, Gurkan, you mentioned about this, so if you want to take this up.
For me, the approach is, look, I mean, we don't just manage teams, we manage individuals. So each person's rewards, recognition, and affirmation is different. So understand where we need to lean in along their growth journey to see, what are some of the softer skills? Is it that, we go from data visualization to storytelling to public speaking or negotiation? So whatever that may be, I'll go back to something that Michael had said. If we can identify, what it is that we're looking for in the teams that we're hiring, then we can also work out with our L&D and HR partners to say, this is kind of like what a holistic, learning journey or a growth journey for an RGM professional looks like. So the SQ piece is going to be more on the softer side of, again, also depending on what does each growth journey look like for the team member.
Got it. There are a bunch of questions for you, Juan, so I'll take one of them. What innovations in demand forecasting do you see as promising beyond traditional AI models for volatile sectors?
Oh, that's a tough one. I guess we're using some tools that can adopt the specific statistical model depending on the circumstances, the market, even the customer. So having the ability to run multiple statistical models at the same time and be able to choose wisely the one that will work better for that specific demand pattern, I think for us it's been a game changer. I'm seeing the benefits of that, and it's not us doing it. It's the tool selecting it for us. We can influence. We can twist a little bit the information that we put into the model. But at the end, they will give us the right sensitivity on which one to use and why. I think Gurkan mentioned it. People hate the black box models, and we need to be able to understand what's happening in the inside of the tool. So having this transparency as well is key. But the possibilities are endless with a tool like this.
Got it. Mike, there's one for you as well. So can you share examples of playbooks or governance models that have proven most effective in incentivizing RGM adoption globally? I think you alluded to it in your conversations earlier, but if you can answer over here.
One of the big motivators that we had at AB InBev was this concept of excellence program. Right. It was basically a framework of maturation that was kind of instilled like broadly across the company. I think they've since abandoned it, but the point being that it was a global competition that every single market was sort of up for the accolades at a very senior leadership team meeting that happened once a year. And, you could almost think about it as this sort of annual self-assessment that I referred to earlier. this being kind of the carrot, right? So it was hey, tell us which one of these things that you're doing. You self-assess your ability to actually demonstrate the execution of it, and then excuse me, and then you would get, if you were amongst the top 5, top 10 or whatever, you would get a process auditor that would come on site to actually hold you accountable for having done these things or not. Now, that being said, I think it like I said, it was probably abandoned, I think, a few years ago. I've not been in the business, so I'm not as close to it as I once was. But this is actually an approach that we're taking at BAT now. And I would say it's less of a burden than the sort of old ABI model where you have a process auditor that would come on site and everything. But it's a little bit different in the sense that we're adopting SLA and KPI framework for the execution of core capabilities, where we have a heavy dependency on the market team's ability to actually influence the things that we're working on. And so we set the expectation up front. Hey, we're going to hold every stakeholder accountable, not just you guys, but also ourselves, also our internal DNA counterparts, also our analytics agency that we partner with. Everybody has some skin in the game to deliver on these timelines with these quality sort of metrics, and this is how we're going to track it. And then at the end of the day, we do have, so that's kind of the stick element, right? It's sort of our point of escalation to use the KPI reporting on holding everybody accountable. And then we have an awards program that we're instituting actually for the first time this year, which is, best in class projects, culture champions, these types of things, right? So less burdensome than the ABI model, but still you have kind of the stick and the carrot element. The stick side, which people won't even recognize that this reporting is happening in the background until there's an issue. And then the awards program is kind of the carrot to get everybody to, demonstrate the great work that they've done.
Yep. One final question, and I think all three of you can answer. This I think from sales team maybe. How do you approach partnership and collaboration with external technology or analytics providers to augment your RGM capabilities?
I always keep my mind open. I mean, I of course have one or two key vendors where that we work with for many years, but I always try to listen to everyone. Right now, things are changing so fast that if you marry with it's not like you're buying a Microsoft Office thing. It's like there are a lot of solutions, and I think there is no secret for anyone here that the big established software companies are being challenged by the disruptors leveraging AI that can really solve things in a matter of weeks rather than long-term implementations. So I'm always challenging myself and my teams and also my vendors on how we can really keep up with the speed of changing, and where we can use this type of technologies to solve problems in an easy way. Because right now we are facing a internal customer that demands answers in a matter of seconds or 2-3 clicks, and with one question, native language, not sophisticated data analysis and a lot of clicks and dashboards to answer something that could be easily being solved by a chatbot or something. So I'm constantly pushing myself, my team, and my vendors in that way. So because at the end, if someone else can do it easily than us, we will lose, let's say, control of the conversation.
No, I agree.
I'll just quickly jump in. What matters the most? What does success look like? And also, what am I trying to solve? What's the job to be done?
I agree. I think the things are moving too fast, and many of the partners are coming up with solutions which are solving the problems earlier not being solved or not solved faster enough. I think we are on top of the hour. Mike, you want to say something? You unmuted or?
No, all good.
Oh, okay.
I'll reserve my comments.
So, I absolutely love talking to all three of you. I think this has been one of the most engaging sessions that we've done so far. I really liked the way you all three have articulated your thoughts. I'm sure audience must have learned a great deal from it. Thank you again so much, and have a good rest of the day, everyone.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you for
Everybody.
the opportunity. Thanks to Michael and Gurkan. A pleasure to share the screen.